All right, let's take a look here at number 24, and again, we're still solving the equation, and we've been given 18 over x minus 4 equals 1 plus 20 over x plus 4. So let's go ahead and, like we've been doing, we'll rewrite the original equation. And we know by now that when we're dealing with an equation, rational equation, we want to find the common denominator so that we can then multiply the whole equation by that common denominator, which will then clear the fraction and help us to begin to solve for, in this case, x. And so let's go ahead and see what we can do to find the common denominator. Well, we know the common denominator has to have one of each factor that's unique. So it looks like we're dealing with x minus 4. Well, that's a unique factor. Here we have an x plus 4. That's another unique factor. And then, of course, we can rewrite 1 as 1 over 1. And yes, 1 is a factor, but 1 is always going to be a factor. So we don't really take that into account. So we're only really dealing with two different factors here, x minus 4, x plus 4. So that's our common denominator. So let's go ahead and multiply the whole equation by that common denominator. And I like to write the common denominator above each term that we are dealing with. And that just helps me to stay a little organized, a little more organized. And I also like to visually see what I'm canceling out, what I'm left with. And I just think I'm more of a visual person, I guess. So, all right, let's go through this. So x minus 4 cancels, so we're left with x plus 4, and we're going to multiply that by 18. So we're distributing 18 to the x and then to the 4. So let's see, we have 18 times x, so that's going to give us 18x. 18 times 4, that'll be plus 72. And then our equal sign. And because we had a 1 in the denominator here, that means we're left with both factors up top. So x minus 4, x plus 4. So we're going to FOIL that out. And whatever the result of this FOIL is, we're going to then multiply by 1. But of course, when you multiply anything by 1, you just end up with itself, right? So really, we're just going to have the result of this FOIL here. And you might notice that we have the x minus 4, x plus 4, which are these, what are they? They are conjugates. There we go. That's the word I was looking for. And so because they are conjugates, meaning the only thing that is different between them is the sign in the middle. We have an x and an x, a 4 and a 4. The only thing that's different is the sign. So we really don't have to FOIL this whole thing out. We can rather, instead of doing the whole thing, we can just do the first term to the first term and the last term to the last term, because if you were to FOIL this whole thing out, you'll see that the two middle terms end up canceling. If you don't remember that, or if you inadvertently go ahead and FOIL the whole thing out, no big deal. You'll just have the two middle terms canceled. But in this case, if you're on a test or, in a situation where you're pressed for time, little hints like this or tricks, if you can recognize them, can save you 15, 20, 30 seconds here, which may not sound like a lot, but, 30 seconds here on this problem, 30 seconds here on this problem, eventually that starts to add up to real time. So it's good to keep an eye out for that. So let's go ahead and just do our first term to our first term. So x times x, well, that's x squared. And then negative 4 times positive 4, well, that's negative 16. And then here we have x plus 4 cancels, and we're left with now 20 times, and now this binomial, x minus 4. So 20 times x, well, that's going to give us 20x. 20 times negative 4, that'll give us minus 80. All right, so we've done our multiplication. Let's go ahead and combine like terms where we can. So we have 18x plus 72 equals x squared plus 20x, and negative 16 minus 80, well, that's minus 96. And we can see that we have a square here, meaning we have a quadratic equation. And we know that when we're dealing with a quadratic equation, we want to get everything on one side of the equal sign and then set the equation equal to 0. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll subtract 18x, subtract 72, subtract 18x, subtract 72, and now we have x squared, that didn't change. 20x minus 18x, well that's plus 2x. And now minus 96 minus 72 is going to give us 168, minus 168, and equals 0. All right, well now we have a quadratic equation, trinomial, that is set equal to 0, so we know that this is going to factor into two binomials. We are dealing with x, so let's go ahead and split that x up. And now we want to find factors of 168 that subtract to give us positive 2. Well, I think we're going to be dealing with plus 14 and minus 12, right? 14 minus 12 is positive 2, and 14 times negative 12 gives us negative 168. And let me go ahead and just rewrite these two factors up here, give us a little more room. And because we're dealing with an equation, now that we have the left side in factored form, we're going to set each of these factors independently equal to 0. Oops, getting a little ahead of myself here. So x plus 14 equals 0, and now x minus 12 equals 0. And let's go ahead and just solve for x. Minus 14, so x equals negative 14. And here we'll add 12, x equals positive 12. And hopefully by now you're in the habit of, once you have solved and you have your solution, or in this case solutions, more than one, you want to take the solutions, plug them back into your original equation, and make sure that none of the solutions you've solved or found make your denominator 0. If you have a solution that when you plug in makes your denominator 0, you want to drop that particular solution as not being a valid solution. In this case, however, if we take the solutions that we found, plug them in for x, we don't get a 0 in the denominator, so we know that both of our answers are valid. All right, so just be on the lookout for that in your homework, my math lab, and certainly on the exam. If any of your solutions, when you plug them back into your denominator, if you get a 0 in the denominator, drop that as being a possible answer. All right, well, there we have number 24. I will see you at number 25.